This is why you should keep your windows closed at night. Welcome back to the series where I tell true horror experiences submitted by you, the viewers. Today's viewer has requested to remain anonymous, but a big thank you for submitting your story. Honestly, after reading this experience, I low-key had a flashback to my own, and especially that dreaded feeling of being watched. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. Today's true horror experience takes place in North America, the USA. This all happened in my grandparents' cabin, located between Angel Fire and Eagle's Nest in New Mexico. We arrived at their cabin at around 10 p.m. We had left home much later than expected and were all pretty exhausted from the long journey, so after settling into our rooms, we all turned in for the night. It must have been between 12 to 3 a.m. when I was abruptly woken by what sounded like screaming coming from outside. The surrounding area was fairly isolated, with only about 5 other cabins in hearing distance. But even then, the scream sounded strange. Not like a mountain lion's, which you would hear now and again, but also not quite human. I initially tried to brush it off and head back to sleep, but then I would hear it again and again, and each time something would change in its inflection, volume, and most concerningly, location, as it sounded like it was getting closer and closer towards the cabin. Well, somehow, against all the odds, I managed to fall back asleep. But not for long, as I found myself awake once again, no longer than an hour later, accompanied by the intense feeling of being watched. But the screams had now dissipated, and instead were replaced by the faint sound of breathing. All my hair stood on end, and my breath started to tremble as I slowly looked towards the source of the sound. And it was just then that I saw, looking through my window, the silhouette of what looked like a tall man. For some context, I was sleeping in a room where my window was right next to the front door, and usually I would keep it open for better airflow. But I guess that night I must have been too tired to open it, and thank God I didn't. So there I was, staring at this figure through my window as it stared back. I thought for a moment maybe I was seeing things like when you confuse a pile of clothes in your room for a monster, but that theory was quickly debunked when I saw it move. One single twitch. I honestly didn't know what to do, so I instinctively hid under my covers and prayed that the sun would rise soon. And luckily it did, no longer than a couple hours later. When I heard familiar footsteps in the hall outside, I immediately jumped out of bed and told my parents everything. The figure was of course gone, and my parents convinced that I must have been dreaming. Well, that's until we found something located outside my window. A dead coyote. Not close enough that you could see it at first glance, but close enough that you could tell it was a warning. Well, what was so disturbing about the sight was that the torso of the coyote had nothing attached besides its head, and its eyes had been popped out. There were long cuts stretching across its back, yet everything looked to still be inside. But what was so confusing was that there were no signs of where the legs were or where they had been taken, just gone. I often wonder as to what that was all about. I mean, had it been an animal, why wasn't it eaten, and instead left like a sick, twisted trophy, a warning? And what concerns me the most is that had I have left my window open like I always did, perhaps I wouldn't be here to tell you about this experience in the first.
My ex-girlfriend called asking for help. She wanted a ride home, but whatever I let in my car was not human anymore. Welcome back to Creepy Crochet and Creepy Pasta. Let's get into today's scary story. Something strange happened that night when I was driving home. It was the same drive I took every night. I was working late and finally ready to leave. While I was driving out of the parking lot, I got a call. It was from my ex-girlfriend Jessica. It was strange because she hadn't contacted me in almost a year. I was glad I got the call before I made it too far down the road where I lost service. I pulled over and answered the call. Before I could even say hello, she cut me off, sounding genuinely scared. "Please, you need to help. I can't reach anyone else. I need you to pick me up at the Cypress Street bus station as soon as you can get here." I tried to respond, but the line went dead. I called her back asking what was going on, but she didn't pick up. I was surprised she would be calling me if she needed help, and confused why, if it was urgent or if she was in danger, that she wouldn't call 911. I couldn't risk ignoring it though. If she really needed help, I had to do something. I turned around and took a detour to Cypress Street to try and find her. I got there in good time and started searching for any bus stops until I found one. Sure enough, there she was. Jessica was sitting alone at the bus stop. She was wearing a large coat but seemingly shivering out in the night. She was still seated and didn't appear to be in immediate danger. I pulled up to the curb by the bus stop and called out, "Jess?" At first she didn't answer, and I was embarrassed I might have made a mistake, but then suddenly she turns towards me and had a strange, confused look like she was just remembering something. She stood up and slowly walked over to my car. I was relieved it was her, and I called out again. "What's wrong, Jess? Did you need a lift? I don't know if the red line comes through this late on a Thursday. Are you all right? You sounded really nervous earlier and wouldn't pick up when I called you back." She still looked confused, and I was worried something was wrong, but she suddenly smiled, as if remembering something that made her happy, and she regarded me. "Oh, thank you. I'm not sure how I got here. Please, take me home." Without another word, she shuffled over to the passenger side and let herself in. The way she moved seemed irregular, not quite like she was drunk, but just an odd, pained movement, like she might be hurt, yet her expression showed no signs of discomfort at all. The effect was a little jarring, and after she got in my car, I suddenly felt a bit unnerved. I brushed it off, though. After all, we had dated for 3 years, and we knew each other pretty well. I figured maybe she was just having a bad night, or perhaps even a bit drunk, though I didn't smell anything on her. I tried to act casual and smiled. She returned the gesture in a strange half-smile, half-grimace. "So, where to?" I asked again. She just sat there, still smiling faintly and looking at me, or rather staring. She continued for nearly 30 seconds, and it felt like she was staring a hole into me. I cleared my throat and asked again, Jessica, where'd you need to go? What did you call me for?" "Oh, called you. I called you." She paused, looking confused, then continued. "Home. Take me home with you. I need help." She looked like she was ready to cry, and my sympathy in the moment prevented me from considering how oddly she was acting and the strange ways she was speaking. I decided I would start heading home, and along the way, try to see what was really going on. We drove on for a while, and she didn't offer any details. She didn't talk about anything unless I asked her directly. She just alternated between staring outside, or worse, when she thought I wasn't looking at her, she would stare at me. The way she looked at me made me uncomfortable. We had spent so much time together, but whatever was wrong with her now made her look at me as if I were an alien she was studying. "What actually happened tonight, Jess? What's wrong? This is kind of strange, you calling me after all this time." I asked her honestly. She looked at me again, her head tilted, like a bird examining prey. She replied, I was attacked. Caught. Someone caught me. Hurt me. I will get help tomorrow, but tonight I just needed a face. A familiar face." I nodded my head and focused on the road. I missed my turn. I had a bad feeling about taking her home in this state. Something was off. As we drove on, she seemed to settle in, and her head lolled back, almost like she was nodding off to sleep. I considered that she might have suffered a head injury or something, which would help explain the odd behavior. I thought it might be good to take her to a hospital just to have her checked out. She started making odd noises while I thought she was asleep. Strange hissing sounds, which had to be intentional. I never heard someone snore like that before. I decided to turn around and start heading back into town. Either I could take her to the hospital or back to her own home. She stayed in the strange sleeping trance for a while. A few times I was worried because I couldn't hear her breathing anymore, but she suddenly exhaled and made more of those strange sounds. When I got back into town and my reception returned, I received a text, or rather a handful of them. I glanced at my phone quickly without wanting to take my eyes off the road for too long. I was confused when I saw they were from Jessica. I thought for a moment she might be pulling some prank where she pretends to be asleep and then messages me. I was curious how she could do that while looking like she was unconscious. I slowed down a little bit and confirmed the empty road, and then pulled up the messages just to see. What I read made my blood freeze. The first one came shortly after I picked Jessica up. "Where are you? Please, I need help. I can't say much, and you will think I'm crazy, but I can't go to the police. I just need to get out of here before it comes back. Something is after me. It looked like a cop earlier. I saw it again, and I had to hide. It tried to kill me. After it attacked me, it changed. You have to believe me. It looks like me. The message ended and I read the next one. I'm sorry, I don't know where it went. I don't see you here. Please hurry. I read the final message just sent a few minutes ago. I need to leave. I hope you're okay. I'm sorry, I never should have asked you to come and get me tonight. I was just so scared. It's better if you stay away. It's not safe. Forget I called you, don't come here, and if you see me waiting, turn away. I know it sounds insane, but it's not really me. I glanced over to the woman sleeping next to me. Her head was slumped forward, but her eyes were fluttering under her lids like REM sleep. I had no idea what was happening. If I wanted to believe Jess, then I had to accept that the person sitting next to me was not only not really her, but was a violent monster. Whatever was happening, I had to get her out of my car. I had an idea. I stopped at a gas station and she woke up as I was parking. She turned over, cracked her neck in an awkward stretch that sounded horrifically painful, but seemed not to cause her discomfort, and asked, "Are we home? I'm so hungry." I held my nerve and lied. "Yes, we are. I can get you something inside. Come on, let's go in and I can get you a bite to eat." She scrutinized me and for a second I thought she could see through the ruse, but her head cocked and she gave an unsettling smile. She slowly opened the car door and stepped out. She waited for me to get out, but I lunged across the seat and pulled the door closed and locked it. The fake smile faded, and my fear that this was just some trick had fully dissolved. What I saw next was something I can never unsee. As she raged outside, her face twisted into a nightmarish jumble of different human features, and an unholy noise emerged that sounded like 100 people screaming at once. She pulled so hard on the door that the handle broke off and part of it buckled. I was not sure that she wouldn't be able to rip the entire door off if she tried hard enough. I put the car in reverse and slammed on the gas, peeling out of there. I managed to turn around and drive away. I looked in my rearview mirror and, to my horror, the thing that had once looked like Jessica was right behind me, sprinting at nearly the speed of the car. The thing chased me for several blocks, moving so fast I was afraid she might actually catch up. I finally lost her, and I struggled to calm myself so I wouldn't crash. I was terrified, but I had so many questions. I called Jessica again, but she didn't answer. I was afraid something had happened to her. I even drove back to the bus stop, but as she had said in her message, she was gone. I didn't know what to do, so I finally drove home after going in a few circles around town and checking behind me at several intervals to make sure I wasn't followed. I kept trying to reach out to Jessica, but after several days her voicemail was full, and after a week I found out she had gone missing. I had a horrible feeling that whatever that thing was had caught up to her. I was devastated that she was gone, but also terrified that whatever it was knew who I was now too. I ended up moving away. I couldn't bear the idea of living near where such a thing existed. I couldn't find any information on what it was or how Jessica had found it, but all I knew was it was real, and it was still out there. After enough time had passed, I felt a bit safer. I thought that since I had put enough distance between us, things would be alright. That all changed after the call I received last night. I got a message from a familiar number. It was my old coworker, Jeff. I asked him why he was calling and he started laughing. "What do you mean? You said you'd come over for the party. I saw you last night. You seemed a little drunk, but I figured you'd remember agreeing to come over and say hi to everyone again. It's been so long. I just wanted to remind you to BYOB. See you there." He said goodbye, and I held the phone next to my ear in shock. The call had ended, and I was speechless. I sit here now, terrified of what is happening back home. There's only one way they could have seen me there. That thing was back. It's there. It's hunting. I have to call and tell everyone. They have to believe me. They have to know that if they see me, it's not really me, and it's not safe.
Tennessee wife says she's seen her dead husband at Buc-ee's, coming out of Buc-ee's. She said he was limping just like her husband used to. She said he wore his cap, his hat, exactly like her husband used to, and like adjusted it and everything. And then she shares that back before he passed away, or supposedly passed away, because apparently they couldn't find him or his body. They just, had a funeral without a body. She said that he went to the Philippines for 2 months with his friends to go do something in the Philippines. She didn't really say what it was. And apparently vanished in the Philippines. And she didn't get into the details about the Filipino, police or anything like that. But she said she is positive this is her husband. Now I'm thinking that he went to the Philippines and maybe found him a little something there. He wanted to stay there. Maybe him and his, his friends, maybe they're on the down low. I don't know. But this woman is convinced. She said she's seen him when he walked out. She's seen him wobble. She said she's seen him get in a truck. She said she's seen him adjust his cap like he used to adjust his cap when he would get into the vehicle, like when they were getting ready to leave. She said it's him.
A series of spooky stories, except for its woman's intuition. While with my current boyfriend in the first year of our relationship, I had a dream one night of me standing with a little girl holding her hand, and I could only see us from behind. The girl had longer blonde hair with those big loose curls towards the end of her hair, how I used to have when I was little. I'm now pregnant with our first kid, and it's a girl. She's definitely gonna have blonde hair as I did when I was little, given the fact that my boyfriend also has dirty blonde/light brown hair. And mind you, it's rare that I remember my dreams. A few months ago, around May, I was going to bed. I had to go to bed early because I had regionals the next day, 4 hours away. After packing all of my equipment, I headed to bed and my dog followed me. She got on the bed and cuddled up next to me. She didn't usually cuddle me like that, so I lived on her back. I remember thinking something's wrong with Bella, but I had just brushed it off. The next morning, I left at 6 a.m. before anyone was up, including my dogs, and I left with my team. About 2 hours into my travels, I got a call from my mother. The moment I saw her name pop up, I immediately thought Bella died. My mom then told me that she was eaten with cancer and there was nothing that they could do. The night before was the last time I ever saw my dog that was with me my whole life. That is so sad. I have a few stories about twin intuition. I have a twin brother, but first, I wanted to share my women's intuition story. A few years ago, I had stayed late at work one night. I got out around 2 a.m. As I was driving home on the frontage road, there were no cars on the road. I got to a stoplight and a red car pulled up to my left, and a few seconds later, a van pulled up to my right. I know this had to be God, but I heard clearly, when the light turns green, don't move. That's exactly what I did. When the light turned green, I stayed put. When both vehicles took off quickly, to only see the van to my right turn and T-boned the red car on my left. I had a dream when I was in the 6th grade that my teacher was going to be in a wreck and that everyone thought she didn't make it. In my dream, she came back to school 3 days after the wreck with only a broken arm. I told my teacher about it the next day and asked her to be careful. She did the mothering thing to calm me down and promised that she would be careful. That afternoon, on her way home, she was in a very bad wreck and wasn't expected to survive. She returned to school 3 days later with only a broken arm. Let me tell y'all something. If someone approaches me and says that they have a weird feeling and I need to be careful, I'm going to wrap myself in bubble wrap and I'm going to crawl in a hole until that time passes. I'm not taking any risks. When I was in middle school, I was walking home with a group of friends and I had a strong feeling that we shouldn't go our normal route. I insisted, but no one listened and we went anyway. When we turned the corner, a group of gang members came and started to scream, demanding our phones. They got up in my guy friends' faces and kept saying their gang name. Since one girl and me were more ahead, I discreetly told everyone to pass their phones until it got to the girl in the front. There was a school in the front, and luckily the girl in front of me knew the teacher coming out. The teacher saw what was going on and got us away from the situation. No one's phone was stolen and no one was harmed. Again, you tell me you have a bad feeling, I'm going with it. I had an extremely vivid dream that I was driving towards a city and flames and cars were parked along the road, watching and people crying. My mom woke me up and told me that a plane had just hit a building in New York City. It was 9/11. 2001. The next morning, a friend and I went to Vegas. The trip had been planned for weeks. While we were there, they announced the city would be observing a moment of silence. The entire strip went dark. Every casino turned off its lights. It was eerie. I had a dream that my neighbor was yelling for help in a big open field and no one could find him. The next morning I found out that he got into a rollover crash with life-threatening injuries. He was found in a huge empty field while his truck landed on the railroad tracks. My husband is 25 years older than me. That is a gap. We used to work together. One day he was working at a different station than me. I couldn't see him from where I was at. I had this overwhelming urge to check on him as he was in the back by himself. He was having a stroke. We got him to the hospital and he stayed overnight. He's perfectly fine now. We've been married for over 21 years. Damn. I moved states when I was in the 6th grade. On my last day of school before moving, one of my friends said in a joking way, "You can't move, I'll die without you." My family and I drove from Florida to Pennsylvania, and the first night in our new house, I had a dream of him thanking me for being his friend. I got a letter in the mail a week later, this was the 90s, from another friend saying that he was biking home from another friend's house and was hit by a drunk driver and passed. Oh my God. When I was 21, I had the same dream for nights on end that my mother was in the hospital and was lying on her deathbed. I received a call on the 18th and was informed that she was lying on her deathbed waiting for her children to pull the plug. That is so sad. Just another quick update. I signed the contracts today and hopefully in the next month I will have my website as well as my app up. I'm very, very excited. It will be subscription based, but I do believe that there will be a free subscription option. It's going to be long form content. I'm really trying to work my way over to the majority of my work being content creation. As I stated in the video that this comment is on, I've been having some really bad neck issues still. I had been seen at the doctor a few years ago for it. I was in physical therapy and everything. It's just getting worse and it's getting really uncomfortable as a nail tech. It's just not ideal to have neck problems. But with this new opportunity, I'm hoping that I will be able to do more content creation. And I'm also going to be taking a couple of college classes because I'm still working towards my RN. There are a lot more work from home job opportunities as an RN versus an LPN. There's a lot more opportunities, period, as an RN. But I would really, really like for content creation to be the forefront of my income. So I'm going to be working really, really hard on that. I appreciate everyone's support. I appreciate everyone for your support literally all of the time, but especially the comments on this video that this comment is responding to. Where I was responding, that is so confusing. I was responding to someone saying, "Why are you reading the comments? We can do that." And people were like, "Shut the fuck up. I literally love it when you read it." And that makes me happy because I really enjoy reading them. So if you love my page and you're interested in long form content from me, stay tuned. It's coming soon.
Do you guys want to hear something crazy? No, really, this is bizarre. When I was a baby, my mom met a man. She married him. He raised me until I was 8 years old. I thought he was my father. He was my stepfather. One day he went to the store. He never came back. I did not see him for 21, 22 years. If you hear licking sounds, it's my cat. These two paintings were in the dining room of my childhood home. And then when I became school age, I would come home from school, I would sit right in front of them and I would speak to them as if they were my parents. I would talk to them. I had some weird connection. Right around this time, from like toddler to like 6, 7 years old, every night before I went to bed, I had these footsteps that would come down the hallway and the metal doorknob on the old Victorian house would rattle and this lovely couple would come in and I was so excited to see them. They would talk to me, they would smile, and they would tuck me in. I did reach a point, probably about 6 or 7, where I had finally addressed it, where I said to my mother and my stepfather, if I don't get to bed soon, like my friends aren't going to be able to come tuck me in, like something like that. There was something that triggered this and, to their surprise, and who tucks you in? And I explained to them, that I had these two people that came in and tucked me in every night, and they were pretty freaked out by it. But also at that point in my life, they'd been freaked out by a lot of stuff that I said, so I don't think they paid it too much mind. Fast forward again, my mom and my stepdad get divorced, okay? My mom kifes these. She takes them. She puts them in a storage unit. She did not take them out again until I was moving out of state, getting married, yada, yada. And then she gave me the key and said, well, if you're getting your own house and you're getting married and stuff, I want you to have these. And I was just utter shock. I could not believe she still had them. I had been estranged from them for so long. I missed them. So I just had this dejected look on my face the whole time, and I packed him up and I didn't ask too many questions. Lock in, we're not even at the crazy part yet. Let's fast forward a little bit more. I am with some friends, we're drinking, we're talking, and out comes this tale about how when I drink certain drinks, my alter ego named Gail comes out. And Gail is not someone I invented. She introduced herself to the gang. And the next morning when I would have anxiety and be like, oh my God, what did I say? What did I do? Everyone would be like, oh, that was just Gail. And this is a whole thing that was going on in 2 different friend groups that I had, not even to my knowledge. So the funny on-running joke for the last 10 years or so has been if I drink X, Y, and Z, but I'm going to tell you, Gail comes out. And Gail is this wealthy older woman who lives in Rhode Island, and she's been married a handful of times. Sometimes we kind of think she killed her husbands. It's kind of weird. She's big in jewelry. She wears all of her old wedding rings, Super Bowl rings. There's just so much lore with Gail introducing herself. Today, okay? We're here. We're present times. I reconnect with my estranged stepfather. I find out that at one point in my childhood, he broke out a photo of his parents. My stepfather grew up in the house that he lived in with me. He bought his old childhood home. We moved in there. He found a photo in the attic of his parents, and he took it downstairs, and my mother framed it, and we put it up on the TV, and I walked in one day, and I went, oh my God, I go, those are my friends who tucked me in at night. Where did you find that photo? And he was like, those are my dead parents, Savannah. What are you talking about? It was a whole thing. So we had discovered that day, I don't really remember that. We discovered that day that, you know, his parents were the ghosts that were coming in and tucking me in at night. These pictures were heirlooms. They were heirlooms from his family. Okay, when I'm growing up and I'm being forced to reconcile with my biological father, whom I did not know, I felt like I had no connection with him, but I was always longing and pining for my stepfather. I felt like that was my dad, my family, my soul connection. I missed him so much. So we're reconnecting. I'm finding out that, you know, his parents were the ghosts that used to tuck me in. These pictures that I've been toting around for the last 10 years are heirlooms of his. There's more. In that house that I grew up in, where all of these ghostly things were happening to me, when he was a child, there was a woman named Gail. I'm going to be honest, I spaced who she is. She was like a friend of the family or a cousin or an aunt or best friend's aunt or something like that. There was a drunken old woman who fell down the stairs in that house. The stairs were connected to my bedroom. My bedroom had 2 entryways. The stairs were connected to my bedroom. She fell down and died. Her name was Gail. Gail had a drinking problem, and she wore too much jewelry. There's more. My stepfather's mother, the ghost that would come in and tuck me in at night, I found out recently, a couple months ago, her and I share the same birthday because my stepfather texted me and said happy birthday on my birthday. We just reconciled with him this last year. Like, we just started talking. I found it odd that he remembered my birthday, so I actually said to him, I was like, you remembered my birthday after all this time? And he said, yeah, you and my mother have the same birthday. He asked what I was doing for my birthday. I told him I was going to the Omni Hotel in the White Mountains, the White Mountain Resort, Rushmore. New Hampshire, Omni, big white, red roof. Everybody loves it. I love it there. I've always wanted to go there. My boyfriend, my lovely boyfriend, he made arrangements for us to go celebrate my birthday for a couple days there. And that was on my bucket list. I had always wanted to go there. Why did I want to go there? I used to have dreams that I was in the ballroom dancing. I had never been there. I had never heard stories or seen pictures, but I just always had this yearning to go. When I was married, I always asked my husband if he would take me there, and he'd say no. That's why I have a boyfriend now. So my boyfriend took me there. So I tell my stepdad, I go, yeah, for my birthday, we're going to the, you know, the place. And he goes, oh, that's so funny. My parents used to go there once a year. They would go dancing in the ballroom. Well, anyway, I'm going to get cracking on this book here. I got to finish this thing. And tomorrow, that stepdad and I, that old guy, we're going to go shoot some golf balls and have a good time. Yeah, tomorrow we're going to hang out.
And this is why I be quick to quit a job. What's up, creepy crew, and welcome back to Mailbox Monday. Tonight's story was sent in by Alexis. So Alexis girl, if you're watching this video, drop something in the comments for us. So there's this girl, let's call her Alexis. She said about 6 years ago, she worked as a night janitor for a college in Tennessee. Her and her partner were assigned to clean a 3-story building plus a 550-seat auditorium. And she refers to him as Jay. She had heard rumors that this campus was notoriously haunted, specifically the building she was working in, but she said she had kids to provide for her. I don't know, them kids might have been hungry. But she said she had to do what she had to do. She would put her headphones on, crack jokes with Jay, and she would make it through her shifts. So Alexis says the first few weeks that she's working there, they were pretty uneventful. But then activities started happening that got progressively worse over time. She said you'd be alone in the classroom and then you'd get the feeling that you weren't alone anymore. As soon as I feel like I'm not alone anymore, but I know that I'm actually alone, I know I'm not gonna be alone no more because I'm finna go find Jay. We finna clean this room together. She said, or you'd hear a door slam in a supposedly empty building. And the next door slamming would have been me on the way out of it. I'm telling you right now. Alexis says the 3rd floor is where most of the reported activity occurred at. So if they were able, her and Jay would each take the 1st and 2nd floor and then do the 3rd floor together. But occasionally one of them would finish their floor and would have to start the 3rd floor alone. I'm not starting a damn thing alone. I'll sit on your floor till you're done. Matter of fact, we can really clean all the floors together. Let's go ahead and knock this bad boy out. Side by side, dynamic duo, busting buddies. So Alexis says that she's terrified of elevators. However, they only had 2 janitor carts for the entire building, so they would have to take the elevator in order to take the cart with them from floor to floor. On 2 separate occasions, the elevator got stuck between the 2nd and 3rd floor with her in it. I feel like that was the Lord telling you not to go up no more. She said thankfully it didn't stay stuck for more than 5 minutes. 5 minutes? Elevator got 10 seconds to be stuck fucking with me. But she said she was able to shake it off and go about her business. Now, she said the 3rd time it got stuck, the fire department had to come and get her out. But after that 3rd incident, she would just put her cart in the elevator, press the button, and then take the stairs. I like you, Alexis. You smart and you thinking big. So Alexis said she was pretty shaken up about the elevator experience, but her solution was working, so she was still able to do her job. Alexis is a hard worker. One thing about her, she gonna get that damn job done. So one night, Alexis and Jay are both on the 3rd floor. He'd take all the classes that were on the side of the hall with the men's restroom, and she'd take the opposite side. And all the way at the end of the hallway, just past the restrooms, was the auditorium. So Jay was further down the hallway, still working on classrooms, but she had already finished hers, so she started working on her restrooms. She said when you walk into this restroom, you walk into a waiting room. There's a couch on the right, and then a doorway to the left. She said once you walk through that doorway, there's a wall of stalls across from you, and then a wall of sinks on the same wall that the entryway was on. So the light switch to both rooms is right by the first door that you walk in to enter the waiting room. This complex ass layout. So Alexis gets started. She's in there sanitizing, busting suds, all that good stuff. She gets to the second to last stall furthest from the entryway when the lights cut off. Excuse me, let me tell you something. Immediately no. Immediately no. Alexis says she just brushes it off thinking Jay is playing around with her. If y'all are so nervous in this building that y'all gotta clean the last floor together, what would make you think he was playing a joke? Ain't shit funny on this floor. Ain't a damn thing funny. It's no time for jokes up here. But she just laughs and she's like, all right, turn it back on so I can finish up in here. And the lights cut back on. However, Jay doesn't respond. So she keeps working. Now me, I'm sticking my head out that stall. Jay, that's you? So she's finally cleaning the last stall, the one furthest away from the door, and the lights cut off again. She knows it's not a power outage or anything because she can hear the light switch being flicked on and off. So she's like, yo, Jay, like, stop playing. It's not funny. I'm trying to finish this up so we can go ahead and knock the auditorium out. Jay doesn't respond. So she goes back to cleaning the last stall. All of a sudden, the lights are flicking on and off. So she says she's getting irritated because she feels like Jay is playing too much. You're playing too much. Why do you think that's Jay? So she busts up out the stall, irritated, ready to cuss Jay out. When she looks up at the entryway coming from the waiting room, there's a face peeking around the corner at her. And instead of eyes, it had 2 pitch black holes. Wee woo, call the men in black because what are we talking about? Now, I fear I may have grabbed the nearest bottle of cleaner and drank it. I wouldn't know what else to do. I wouldn't know what else to do. So she screams louder than she's ever screamed before and ran back into that last stall. She said she didn't leave the bathroom because there was no amount of money in the world that you could pay her to make her run past that thing. And I don't blame her. I would have went in that bathroom and tried to flush myself into another dimension. I don't know. I'm not going out there though. Not by that thing. So the light stopped flickering and she's now crouched between the toilet and the wall covering her face. Now, I know I just cleaned this stall. I don't give a damn how good I cleaned it. I'm not crouching down beside that damn toilet. That's just me. That's just me. So Jay was down at the other end of the hallway with their team lead. Apparently she would like pop in for progress updates. But he comes running to the bathroom because they both heard her screaming. She said as soon as both of them were in the bathroom with her, she ran out of the bathroom and out of the building before telling anybody what could happen. I know that's right. I hate it when the people get trying to explain the ghosts and demons in the room with the ghosts and the demons. We will talk about it later. Let's go, please. She said she had her team lead go back in and get her stuff for her. If I'm the team lead, I'm not going in there either. You can get it tomorrow when the sun comes out. Alexis says she never stepped foot in that building again and she quit her job that night. I'm not mad at your sister. I couldn't quit it no faster. She says she will never forget the face that was looking at her, and sometimes she still has dreams about the black holes where the eyes should have been. She said the thing made her feel hollow, like all the warmth had been taken out of her body. In those few moments she was in there before Jay and the team lead got in there, she said she could just feel the negativity from it, and she knew it wasn't anything good. And she said she's never felt terror like that before or since then in her life. I'm glad you got up out of that, sister. And I'm glad you ain't go back. Y'all stay safe out there.
This duende story chills. I have chills. Also, these are my earrings. You can't see them because my earlobes suck. This lady says that when her youngest daughter was 4 years old, she had an imaginary friend. Her daughter would describe him as like this little tiny old man with a really long beard. Now her husband would tell her that he thinks that imaginary friend was a duende. She did think that it was weird that her daughter would describe her imaginary friend as like this little tiny old man with a beard, but she didn't want to give it that much importance. Important. Now the girl telling the story says that her mom would tell her that when she was younger, she also had a duende, that she would tell her mom that this little man would pull her hair and make her cry, so she was always terrified of sleeping by herself. Now she says that she doesn't remember any of it, but she is very much scared of duendes and things of that sort. She was so scared of this topic that she ended up asking her husband, the girl's older sisters, even her mom to talk to that girl because she just didn't want to entertain that conversation. It really did scare her. She went as far as to ask them to like maybe show her a different cartoon, show her like different movies so that maybe this imaginary friend would change and not be like this little old man she's describing, because obviously it sounds like a duende. She knows that it's silly and she sounds so stupid, but like she couldn't handle listening to her daughter like talk about this imaginary friend. Like she couldn't deal with it anymore. It would scare her so much. So there was one day where her and her husband were in the living room and the daughter was in her bedroom that she shared with her siblings, but she was in there by herself. The rest of her daughters were outside, so it was just mom and dad and daughter all alone in that house. And out of nowhere is when they hear like somebody slap somebody really hard. After hearing that slap, they hear that the daughter is crying in the bedroom, so they both get up and go run into her room. When they look at her, they say that there was like a tiny handprint on her cheek. They could tell that she got slapped really hard because her cheek was all red in that little handprint, but they know that it wasn't their other daughters because they could literally see them through the window. There was nobody else that could have slapped her, and when the girl finally calmed down from crying, she tells her parents that it was her friend. She tells them that he got mad and slapped her, and they didn't know what to say or do other than to tell her that they believed her. They told her that they would take care of her and that they would make sure that her friend wouldn't hurt her again. Now she said that she had never been so scared in her life other than that night. They ended up letting her sleep with them. She remembers laying in bed next to her daughter, and like any little sound that she would hear would like startle her. She would be so scared. And thankfully nothing happened throughout the night. The daughter also said that she would not be playing with him if he showed up again. She finally got over everything that happened, and with time she completely forgot about her imaginary friend. Or at least that is what the mom thought. Her daughter is now 8 years old and she doesn't remember how the topic of the conversation came up of her imaginary friend, that little old man. They started talking about how she got slapped, and in the dinner table with everybody around, she started to tell them why her friend had slapped her. Apparently her friend told her that she didn't look like her mom because she wasn't a crybaby. That is when her daughter told her friend to shut up and not to be talking bad about her mom. When she says this, she says that her friend started laughing and that made her really mad. Not only did this friend continue to laugh, but then he kept saying, "Your mom's a crybaby, your mom's a crybaby." And that is when her daughter tried to hit her friend for making fun of the mom. When she went to swing at this thing, which by the way, go you, because yeah, what the fuck, don't be talking shit about my mom. He was no longer there, totally missed, and apparently he popped up again next to her, but this time he wasn't the little old man. It was almost as he grew to be as tall as her. She explains that she had never seen her imaginary friend grow that tall just to slap her, and after he slaps her, he runs and almost gets smaller and smaller and got underneath the dresser. She described it as like, you know, like if you see a rat run and try to like squeeze into a space that knows nobody can get through, that is what the imaginary friend did, and that is what it looked like. From underneath the dresser, he popped his head out and tells the little girl that he was gonna come for her, and that is when, you know, mom and dad walk in and they're like, what the fuck happened, because they heard the slap, and she was crying. The daughter had also mentioned that he just kept talking shit about her mom, like saying other things, and that's when finally the mom was like, well, what was he saying about me that made you so angry? Her daughter tells her that the duende was telling her how he used to pull
her mom's hair when she was little, and that her mom would cry and he would be so happy just messing with her. Oh my god. She remembers dropping her fork as soon as she heard her daughter say that. She started shaking. She was so scared because there's no way that her daughter would have known that. Her mom had told her that, you know, a while ago wasn't something that she would go around talking about again. She's terrified of duendes. So how the fuck did her daughter know? And was this duende the same duende that had messed with her when she was a kid? Now she says that her husband, like, he wasn't the kind of person that would be so scared easily or anything like that, but there was something that their daughter mentioned that did scare him so much when she said it. There was something that this friend had told the daughter that the daughter told the dad without the mom hearing, because she knew how scared her mom was at that point. Her friend, the duende, had told her that he was gonna come back while her mom and her were asleep, but that he never told her when he was gonna come back. Her daughter, even at 8 years old now, goes to bed every night in fear that that is the night where her friend will return. And that is how it ends. And you want to know why? Because this happened 2 weeks ago. This conversation at the dinner table happened 2 weeks ago. Like, fuck, I would not be able to sleep after.
I need to tell you guys this ghost story. This story was sent into my email, and if you have any ghost stories, paranormal encounters, or scary stories that you want to share, you can send them to the email in my bio. I still think about what happened to us. Think about it, not talk about it, because honestly, when I say the words out loud, it still makes me uneasy. My friend Lottie had been asked to house sit this enormous old Victorian house in England. Over here, houses like that aren't exactly rare, but this one just felt different. It was massive, 4 stories tall, with endless hallways, old wooden staircases. Just a few nights before we got there, someone had actually tried to break into the house. Several of the windows had been cracked or damaged, and because of that, Lottie was terrified of staying there alone. So she asked me and our friend Abby if we'd spend the week with her. Of course, we said yes. Me and Abby kind of thought that the break-ins just made staying there all that more exciting. So at first it was fun. We ordered takeaway, watched movies, laughed at every little creak that the house made, convincing ourselves that all the strange noises were just the same noises that every old Victorian house makes. Every groan of the floorboards, every rattle of the pipes, we brushed it off and giggled. Eventually, though, it got late, and around 2 in the morning, Abby fell asleep. Now, we'd always known she talked in her sleep. Apparently, she also sleepwalked, although I'd never actually witnessed it myself. Me and Lottie were both lying there, half asleep, when suddenly, Abby sat upright. Without saying a word, she climbed out of the bed and walked straight out of the room. Now, even knowing that she sleptwalked, something felt wrong. We hadn't gone anywhere in the house alone all night, not even to use the bathroom. We'd literally walked everywhere together because we were so paranoid that the people who tried to break in might come back. So, seeing Abby wander off by herself honestly scared me. I called after her, asking where she was going, but nothing. I got no response. Honestly, she didn't even acknowledge that I had spoken to her. Lottie immediately whispered, "She's sleepwalking." So after that little bit of information sunk in, we actually found it hilarious. We grabbed our phones, started recording, and followed behind her, laughing quietly. Honestly, we couldn't wait to show her the videos the next morning. As we followed her, she slowly made her way down the staircase. And then another. Her eyes were wide open, but they looked completely empty. She kept mumbling random things over and over again. "Where's my dress? I've lost my shoes." The words didn't make much sense, but she just kept repeating them in this quiet and distant voice. Then she walked into the kitchen and, without hesitating, opened a tiny wooden door tucked into the wall and disappeared down yet another staircase. I remember I was still smiling. I looked over at Lottie, and then I got scared. And I paused. Every bit of color had drained from her face, and she wasn't laughing anymore. She was staring at the open door, staring down the dark staircase. When I asked her what was wrong, she looked at me and quietly said, "That's the basement." Now, if you're from the UK, you'll know that this isn't normal. Most houses don't have basements here. At least, not houses any of us had ever been in. Basements were something we really only had seen in horror movies. The worst part was that Lottie was the only one who knew that there even was a basement in this house. Neither me nor Abby had ever been told it existed, So how had Abby found it while asleep? We stood there arguing over what to do. I wanted to go after her immediately. Lottie kept saying that it was dangerous to wake someone up who was sleepwalking and that she'd probably just come back up by herself. Ultimately, we decided that we couldn't leave her down there. So we switched on the light above the stairs and saw her down below. She was standing perfectly still in the middle of the basement. Her back was facing us. She wasn't moving. She was still quietly mumbling to herself. Neither of us wanted to go down there, but we forced ourselves. We each took one of her hands and gently guided her back up the stairs. And she never resisted. She never even looked at us. Just stared blankly ahead with her wide open eyes. Eventually, we got her back into bed, and within seconds, she closed her eyes and was asleep again. Neither me or Lottie slept a wink after that. Something about the entire incident, the way Abby had been acting, it didn't feel like normal sleepwalking. It didn't feel like her. Suddenly, every little creak that the house made sounded louder. Every noise made us jump. Then around 4:30, Abby woke up properly. When we showed her the videos and asked if she remembered anything, she laughed, but she genuinely couldn't remember a single thing. She thought it was funny, but me and Lottie felt otherwise. And then, as if the house had been waiting for all of us to be awake, the noises started. Knocking somewhere downstairs. And then doors slamming. Not once either. It was over and over and over again. So much noise in such little time, and then, right above us, footsteps. Pressure on the floorboards. Slow and heavy. It sounded like something was crawling across all fours, right upstairs. None of us said a word. We all looked at each other and with a glance decided that we were leaving. We didn't care what time it was. We didn't care if we looked ridiculous. We threw on our shoes, grabbed whatever we could, and while we were quickly packing, we heard a high-pitched scraping sound coming from downstairs. It sounded like metal being dragged across the stone floor, slow and loud, echoing through the entire house. We screamed. We ran. We sprinted down 2 flights of stairs without looking back, grabbed the house key hanging by the front door, and left. None of us even stopped to grab our phones. The only thing that I happened to have with me was my car keys. And that was all. By then it was nearly 6 in the morning and the sun had just started coming up, and I drove us straight to Lottie's mom's house. We hammered on the front door for what felt like forever before she finally answered, and I was crying so hard that I could barely explain what had happened to us. After hearing our story, she immediately called the police. She genuinely believed that the people who had tried to break in earlier in that week had returned. Later that day, officers searched the entire property, and they found absolutely no sign that anyone other than us had broken in or been in the home at all. No footprints, no evidence. The only thing they found was a 6-foot china cabinet moved into the middle of the kitchen. No one could explain how it had gotten there. We never went back. In September of 2025, Lottie actually told me that the owners of that house had finally sold it and someone else lives there now. I think about the people who live there. I wonder if...
When I say one more video before bed, I unfortunately always get something like this. And for some reason, I saw that last night, and my mind went straight to this movie. The Exorcism of Emily Rose is one of those movies that you watch just one time because you will be forever scarred, or at least I was. And it doesn't help that this movie was based on the true possession and multiple exorcisms of Annalise Michel. I don't think I'll ever recover after listening to the audio tapes of her exorcisms, specifically the unnatural laughter that came out of her. On July 1st, 1976, 23-year-old Annalise Michel would die after undergoing 67 exorcisms over the span of just 10 months for demonic possession. What she experienced leading up to her death is horrifying. So Annalise lived in West Germany with her 3 siblings and parents. They grew up super religious as Roman Catholics, and they went to mass twice a week. When she was 16 years old, she suddenly blacked out at school and walked around in a trance-like state. Her parents didn't quite understand why, but a year later, she blacked out once again. She was in bed this time and woke up in a trance-like state, having wet the bed. Her parents then took her to the doctor, where she was diagnosed with psychosis caused by temporal lobe epilepsy. She had been having having multiple seizures. She was then put on a string of medication to try and treat both, yet nothing worked. And she was eventually also diagnosed with depression. By 20 years old, Annalise's mental health got even worse, and it was at this point that she refused to be around anyone or anything religious. In 1970, she had a devastating third seizure, and after this, she started seeing the devil everywhere she went, and she would hear voices telling her that she was damned and that she was going to rot in hell. After 5 years of no improvement on the medications, Annalise and her parents began to think that she was possessed by a demon, so they appealed to the Catholic Church for an exorcism, but it was initially rejected. They felt that there was no hope in traditional doctors, and they thought that no medication would help Annalise. So eventually, they stopped going to the doctor altogether. But in that time frame, Annalise's behavior grew more and more terrifying. She became incredibly aggressive and would hurt herself. She often drank her own urine and would eat insects and crawl under tables. It got so bad that she even barked like a dog for 2 days, and she would compulsively do up to 400 squats a day, and even bit the head off of a dead bird. She would then resort to growling and was eventually taken to a commune. During her time there, she couldn't even be in the same room as a crucifix, and she would refuse to drink holy water. When she would walk up to the shrine, she physically could not enter. She said that the soil burned like fire and she couldn't take it any longer. Annalise said that when she looked around at the other people praying, it looked like they were gnashing their teeth at her. It was there that she was determined to be suffering from demonic possession. In 1975, the family finally got approval from a local bishop to begin performing exorcisms, but this was ordered to be in total secrecy. The exorcisms would be performed by 2 priests, and they started in late September of 1975. Over the next 10 months, Annalise would be subjected to 1 or 2 exorcisms a week, and those would last up to 4 hours long. In total, she underwent 67 exorcisms, and the audio tapes from those exorcisms are literally terrifying. I'm about to play a clip for you right now, so this is your trigger warning. What you're about to hear is incredibly disturbing.
Ja. Ja. Weil er eine starke Waffe ist. Ja. Gegen Satan. Ja. Ja. Und alle Dämonen. Ja, gegen uns. Ja, der Rosenkranz, eine gewaltige Macht, die den ja. Wer ist der Schulterhand? Hier. Im Namen des Vaters, des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen. So langt's noch nicht, ne? Nein, im Namen des Vaters, des Sohnes und des Amen. Die Automagie kommt ja nur von dir. Im Namen des Vaters und des Sohnes und des Heiligen Geistes. Amen. Sag die Wahrheit, Vater der Lüge. Nein, wir müssen deutlich als Prinzessin sein. Das jeder weiß. Oh ja. Das freut mich unheimlich. Die Drecksau ja. Das kann ich Ihnen gar nicht sagen, wie unheimlich mich das freut. Ja.
During these exorcisms, Annalise said that she was possessed by 6 demons, and she said one thing that will forever haunt me. She said, quote, "People are as stupid as pigs. They think it's all over after death. It goes on." End quote. Obviously, everything she was going through is horrifying, but I don't know, this line really terrifies me. I already have an overwhelming sense of dread about death and what happens after, so this just made it worse. Anyways, these exorcisms were so violent that she broke both of her knees, and she had ripped all of her tendons from continually kneeling in prayer. She also began refusing to eat food. On July 1st, 1976, 10 months after the first exorcism, Annalise died. Her official cause of death was from malnutrition and dehydration. She was in a state of near starvation for nearly a year, and she weighed only 66 pounds. Because of the state she was in, Annalise's parents and the 2 priests who were performing the exorcisms were arrested, and their case went to trial. At the trial, doctors argued that Annalise wasn't ever possessed, and that the manifestations of demonic possession were a psychological effect of her strict religious upbringing and her epilepsy. The defense argued that nothing they did was illegal, and they played the exorcism audio tapes in court court trying to prove that she was indeed possessed. They also said that Annalise was finally freed of demonic possession right before she died. But eventually it was proven that her death could have been prevented and that in all likelihood, she wasn't ever possessed, just severely mentally unwell. All parties were eventually found guilty of negligent homicide. The priests were sentenced to 6 months in jail, but that was later reduced to just 3 years probation and they had to pay a fine. Although her parents were found guilty, under German law, they weren't ever charged because they had already, quote, suffered enough. Not long after the trial, Annalise's parents had her body exhumed because she was buried too fast and in a cheap coffin. So they had her reburied in a new oak coffin that was lined with tin. Several years after the exorcism of Annalise Michel, the Catholic Church retracted the claim that she was ever possessed. I first learned about this case after watching this movie, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which is loosely based on Annalise. And this movie, to this day, still scares me like no other. I don't know if it's the sounds or the way her body twists. I don't know, but it's just terrifying. Like I said, it's one of those movies that you only really need to watch once in your lifetime. But literally, of course, right as I was about to go to sleep, I saw this video and it instantly brought me back to that case / this movie.